So I went to a predominantly black high school, and weirdly, they had a rugby team there. One of my old math teachers, a white male, he started the program there, and a lot of the boys jumped on it, a couple of the girls, but I was running track then, and that was kind of my main sport, main goal going into college. And I seen it. I grew up wanting to be the first girl in the NFL. I was a very rough child. I always played football with the boys growing up. So I always had a deep need to play a contact sport, but I never did for a long time. I was running track. There's really no contact in that besides handing a baton to somebody. So when I found out my high school had it, I talked to my coach, my track coach, about playing, and he was like, absolutely not, because now you learn like there's a lot of injuries in contact sports. So he didn't want to risk my track and field background. So I ended up continuing track, and then when I got to college, decided to focus on academics. And while doing that, I ended up finding that we had a rugby club women's team there. So I tried out for that, and then fell in love because I not only got to keep the speed track part of it, but I also got to get the contact as well. So it was a combination of both, and it was new to me because it was a team sport, and track and field is in some sense a team sport, but at the end of the day, you have to win your race, and it all comes down on you, whereas in rugby, you have to depend on other people to get the outcome that you'd like. Opportunity-wise, I didn't know that there was a national women's rugby team. Didn't know. I just knew there was a high school team, and then I found out there was a club team at my college. So basically, I was learning as I was going because I didn't hear anything about it in social media, on TV, or anything like that. Being in the U.S., that is not that big here still. So learning about it in college and finding out that there was a national team, and then having the opportunity to try out for that. I did that 2 months into playing my first year of college. Athletically, I was where I needed to be, but skill-wise, I was not. So the USA team was willing to teach me that, but still being in college and just starting, I wanted to focus on school and make sure that I had that down pat before I went off and did anything fun, if that makes sense, because in my mind, it wasn't like a job. I didn't know that it was a profession until my last year of college. I got contracted to come to California and play for the team, and from there I got to travel the world. I've met some amazing people. I've added new women to my family. I've been able to do things that I never even imagined, and I've been able to go places that I never thought I would see. And a lot of people don't know that that opportunity is out there, especially in the Black communities, because the sport's not big in the U.S. and it's definitely not big in Black communities. But now, them being able to see me go to these places and accomplish all these things that they never knew even existed. Now I'm getting social media messages about how people look up to me, and that's like something crazy to hear, because you don't expect going into college that you're gonna one day become one of the almost best players of sevens in the U.S., and that people are gonna look up to you and say that they want to be like you, because that's crazy. Like, you don't think about that. So then now I feel like I obviously wasn't the first African American to do it. Like, you have Vix, who was the all-time try-scoring player of the U.S., and you have Benicia as well. Like, I wasn't the first one to do it, but I opened the door kind of for the East Coast and for people of color like me, women and men, to see like, dang, like there's other things out there, and even if it's not rugby that they want to choose, there's other sports out there that aren't as big in the U.S. as well that they could look into. just to get the experiences that I've been able to experience. And hopefully they will follow in my footsteps, whether it's in rugby or any other type of profession. Doesn't even have to be sports, where they look into something that is not normal for them to be doing and try to find the light and treasure in that. Yeah, so obviously you have to move differently, and I learned that as I've been here for the past 3 years, that there's some things that you can't do, and you have to be an adult basically and show people the right things that they're supposed to be doing. And obviously at the end of the day, you have to stay true to yourself. Like, you don't want to put on a fake smile or be somebody that you're not, because that's not portraying a good message as well. So I just learned to be myself, but obviously tame down any things that weren't very good for people to be doing or as they're growing up. Just trying to learn to be a good role model. Like, I'm still learning how to be a good role model and how to affect people in a positive way outside of the sport, just based on being myself and speaking my truth and still being the fun Naya that I am, and not trying to hide that because I want to look like this perfect woman, because I'm not. Nobody is. So I think that's very important, and that's something that I think some girls may stray away from when they come into the profession of sports, is that they have to be perfect, that you can't drink, you can't eat sugar, you can't party. Like, and at the end of the day, we're all human. And whatever makes you happy and makes you come onto the field and do what you need to do and not be miserable when you walk off, do that. And that's one of the things I learned, is just stay true to yourself, but know that now you have responsibilities that even though you didn't choose it, it is what it is, and you have to work with it and build on that. So, obviously, probably the first criticism you receive coming into the program is from your own teammates. Naturally, it's a competitive environment, and at the end of the day, somebody's taking somebody's spot. So, I think that was my first conflict, was learning how to deal with a competitive environment where money and other accomplishments were on the line. Whereas in college, it's like, it's fun, it's recreational. If you win, great. If you lose, it's okay. But here, it's like, you need to win. You need to be the best. You need to be able to do everything that everybody else can do. And coming in, I was not that player. I was athletically able, but rugby-wise, mentally and skillfully, I wasn't where I needed to be. And 2 to 3 months in, we had a coach change, and we had Richie Walker come in. And I think he definitely saw my potential, but he needed me to be on the same level as everybody else, because your athletic abilities is not always going to get you there. It's going to have to be hard work. And I hadn't had to do that yet, because I was solely going off of what I could do naturally. So him coming in basically changed my life, because when he came in, he decided to cut me, and it wasn't like, okay, you don't belong here, you're not good enough. It's, you have potential. I'm going to put you in an environment where I can build you up and make you into hopefully one of the best players in the world eventually, because you have the athletic ability, but you don't have the knowledge and you don't have the skills, handball wise, eye coordination, things like that. So him cutting me, I hadn't dealt with adversity really in anything I ever did. Not in school, not in sports, not in family life. I never really struggled, thank God. But that was like my first hill to get over, because as soon as I was released from the team, my first instinct was, okay, well, I'm going back home. I'm gonna go to grad school like I planned. Like, this is why I needed to stick to the conventional way of get your degree, get your 9 to 5 because it's stable. But life isn't fun like that. It's not enjoyable like that. So I ended up talking with my parents, and they said, you can't come back. So I had to stay and figure it out. And that was my first time struggling and working through that. Obviously not by myself. I had the support of my family and my friends. But that was the first hump for me. And that was the first time I really had to work for something. And that showed me, like, okay, you actually are starting to love this sport, because if you didn't, you would just leave. And I didn't. I stayed. So for about 4 months, I was waking up at 4 a.m. to train with Atavis and work on my passing, work on my fitness, and work on any other skills like hand-eye coordination and things like that. And then eventually, I had our present coach right now working with me then on my passing, and it got way better. So around, I want to say September, I was brought back onto the team. Still had the athletic part, but now I had some of the skills to match everybody else who was there, because you can't just come in and expect that your athletic abilities is going to rise you to the top, because it's not. You have to work hard for it. So that was one of the main lessons I learned, was that you're going to have to work for anything that you want, and that you can't ever be complacent. So after I learned how to pass, then it's like, okay, now you got to learn how to ruck. Now you got to learn how to tackle. There's so many elements to the sport, and you can never stop learning, even when you think you know everything. Like, there's always something new to learn. Now I'm even doing like pods, and I never, like, just doing things that I never expected that I would do, never thought I had the possibility of doing, because in everybody's eyes, it was always, she's a fast girl, she's a fast girl, and I got complacent with that. But then Richie opened my eyes and was like, you can't just be the fast girl, because you're going to have a lot of fast girls coming in. So what more can you offer? So he basically started the rise of the player I am today. And with the help of Brownie, our coach now, like, I'm becoming an all-around player, not just a one-trick pony. So now walking on the field and people knowing, if you don't get away from her, she's going to steal the ball from you. Not just, oh, she's going to run around you. Or not just, she'll get a pass off to her teammate. Like, I used to only want to be on the outside. But now to be able to play anywhere on the field, that's the game changer. So that was one of the main adversities I learned. Just criticism, being able to take that from your teammates, because it's a competitive environment and everything isn't going to be rosy and friendly and cheeky. And then being able to not even get knocked down, but for somebody to tell you, you need to work on this, and you believe it and actually do it. So having those type of honest people around you is very important, because coming up, you can be surrounded by people who only tell you the nice things, and that doesn't help you. So one of the main things I learned was just honesty, and that it can only help you, it can't really hurt you. In the beginning, it was really hard, because it was my first time going through something like that. But I did a lot of writing to release some of the negative energy that I had built in from that, rather than venting it off on somebody else. And I just grew from it and just tried to take everything that I could out of that moment. Because like they say, you never lose. You either, you learn something from it. Everything that happens, bad or good, you're, at the end of the day, you'll get something out of it. You'll learn something from that. And that's one of the situations where in that moment, I was like, this is all bad. But now, 3 years later, I'm like, I wouldn't be where I'm at today if that didn't happen to me. My brother was a big football kid, so he was like the golden child growing up. He played high school football, was a star at his high school, was the star at his college, and then he went to the NFL for a couple months, moved around a little bit, and then did the CFL as well. But eventually now he's just coaching. So I think just watching him and how my mom was so intrigued by like amazing athletes, because that's what he was. So I think that kind of pushed me, because I'm very competitive, to also do that. And then that just led the way for my sisters as well, because we've all been competing since we were babies. So my brother did football, and me and my younger sister did track and field together. She was really good, but she ended up getting a knee injury, so that hindered a lot of what she could do. So now she's just teaching. And then I have a younger sister who did basketball, picked it up really fast, played in college for a little bit, but now she's in dentistry school. Sorry. So yeah, basically a family of athletes. Everybody did sports. They didn't know what rugby was. Nobody knew what rugby was until I picked it up in college and started playing. And my mom, being the woman that she is, she just supported it from the jump, and she's been a fan ever since. And I just remember her coming to my college games and saying, "I don't know what's going on. I don't understand the game, but I see that everybody's cheering for you, so then I'm just happy about it." So that just made me happy that she was always 100% supportive. And then I think her jumping on the wagon just kind of brought my sisters and brothers in, because they're just watching, like, what is Naya doing? So then they started coming to my games. My brother's a big supporter now. He likes to watch my games, and I sometimes feel like he wants to come out and try the sport and see what he could do, because he'd probably be really good. But I just let him know, like, yeah, you're athletic, but you got a lot of skills that you have to learn. And I can say that now because I've worked for it and I'm still working towards it. But yeah, they know what it is now, and then it's just spread. So it's spread from my family to my bigger family to now my friends, and from friends just to people they know, and on the East Coast and things like that. So it's getting awareness out there, which is really nice. I think the biggest things I learned growing up to lead into the sport is that God gives you a gift, and you got to take advantage of it. So I knew I had this athletic talent, and I was told a lot by the people around me. So just having that support system is very, very important, because growing up, rugby-wise, in college, I experienced a lot of the girls didn't have the support of their family because of the connotations behind the sport and having a woman play a contact sport. It wasn't, and still isn't, thought of as acceptable. So having that support, but having to look at other people who didn't have it, and that they were still fighting and they were dealing with adversities that I didn't have to deal with then, but had to watch. Just learning from that, and learning that everybody comes from different environments, and that rugby just brings so many different types of cultures, people, backgrounds together. And I've met people that I would never approach if it wasn't for rugby. And like, some of those people now are my best friends. So to think that I was living in such a small world and exploding out of that and seeing how big the world is, I think that's one of the lessons that I learned, was to always look for the next best thing, like always look to improve, and to know that the world is bigger than you think it is, and that you can achieve more than you think you can. And just for like young women, young men of all colors growing up, I read a book by Charlemagne the God. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a radio host. And one of the things he talked about was sorry, I'm blanking. So he talked about this thing called black privilege. And growing up, everybody's like, oh, white privilege, like that's what everybody has. And African Americans, your opportunities are closed off. And one of the main things he talked about was that it's not. And that when you're born, you already have this black privilege. you already have this privilege, and it's up to you to go grab it. So like you said, rugby didn't find me, I found rugby. And you just have to have an open mind, I think, because growing up, people can filter and tell you what you can and can't do based on how you've grown up, how much money you have, the color of your skin, things like that. And it's not true. It's just it's a blindfold, basically. And as soon as you're able to put that negative talk and all these stereotypes that you're grown up with behind you, like that blindfold comes off and you see the light and you see all the opportunities that you can achieve. And I think that's very important, is to keep an open mind and know that it can get better, but that you have to work for it, that you can't sit around and expect it to come to you, that you have to get up on your feet and go get what you want. Whether, even if you don't know what you want yet, you just have to get up and go get something every morning, have a small goal, and eventually that'll lead to bigger goals. So just for younger men and women, just keep an open mind. Always keep improving yourself, because you can always get better, and just use all your adversities to motivate yourself to become something better.